What is going on, YouTube? ModzvilleUSA here, back with another video, and today we're going to be tackling the new S-RGH 1.2 method, this time for Corona consoles. So I've got a Corona motherboard here, already taken off the heatsink, and we're just going to go over everything you need to know for Coronas. I've never done a video specifically on Coronas. So yeah, you'll see a lot of info out there, V1, V2, V3, etc. Really none of that matters. What matters is the couple things we're going to go over here. So we're going to be taking a look at a few specific areas. First off, the type of chip. So let's zoom in right there. So we're focusing in on this area. Now, as you can see, we've got this little tiny chip, but right here you see these unpopulated legs here. So what this means specifically is we have a 4 gig NAND. So what we're going to need to do is solder up one of the SD card readers, or if you have the new X-Flasher 360, which I got, they've got a built-in, they can handle everything. If you've got a Nand X or JR programmer, you're going to need a separate tool to read these types of chips here. But if you don't have anything, I'd recommend just grabbing one of these guys here. I printed this custom case from Thingiverse for the season. Nice and spooky color scheme here. But I grabbed the X-Flasher from Weekend Modder, and yeah, you can get them a few different places, so check that out. Otherwise, you're going to need one of these guys, something like this, SD tool. There's a couple different variants of this, but yeah, you'll need something like that to read these bad boys. So if you're lucky enough to have one of these, like a full chip instead of the little one, which I have that I just showed you, if it's like a full package like this, then you will just use the regular Nand X JR programmer method as such here. Just wire it up like that, like any other console. Good to go. Just dump it with your Nand X JR programmer or even the X Flasher. Just wire it up like that. But we're going to be going the 4 gig method. Alright, on to the next thing to take note of. So we're going to zero in on this part of the board and see if these resistors are missing. If they are, then we're going to need to bridge them. So let's check that out on our board. Okay. As you can see, we are completely populated here with resistors. And we're good to go. We don't need to worry about that at all. And if yours are missing, just go ahead and bridge them. I like to use some 30 gauge wire, place them over, add some solder to the tip of the iron, and just do it that way. It's quite a bit simpler than just trying to bridge it with a blob of solder. Now we're going to take a look right above the CPU, GPU, I believe APU is what it's called, and see if we have these traces. So you need to take the heatsink off just to be sure, but once it's off, we're looking for these traces right here. So this is one that's good. This does not need the Postfix adapter at all. The traces are still populated, So yeah, if yours looks like this, you do not need a Postfix adapter. Let's take a look at ours. And we are missing those traces. So this will need one of these CPU Postfix adapters installed. So as you can see, it is missing those traces. That's what it looks like when those traces are populated, and you do not need the Postfix adapter. So that's pretty much everything you need to know for any version of a Corona. Check those 3 things. First thing, just to go over it one more time, first thing is what type of NAND chip. If it's fully populated, then you dump the NAND with the standard NANDX JR programmer. Use these pin headers. If it's a small one like this, you're going to need to use the SD tool, which gets soldered up right here, or the nice new all-in-one X Flasher 360. So there's that. Second being, are these resistors present? If so, then move on to the next thing. If not, then you're going to need to bridge the missing resistors. And lastly, are these traces populated? If they are, then you don't need to do anything. If they are not, you're going to need Postfix adapter. So I like to keep quite a few of these on hand, just in the event that I'm working on a Corona and I need to install a Postfix adapter. These are very cheap. You can get them by the dozen on AliExpress. Yeah, very readily available. Good to go. These are clones, obviously. I do not believe these are from Team Executor, but they've got all the branding of it. So that's that. So let's get to work. Okay, so we've got the Postfix adapter in position here. What we're going to do, just get it below these resistors here to where it's flush to the board. Push it down. It might spring back up. And then we take the bottom piece here, push it down a bit, okay, now it's nice and locked in. What we're going to want to do is grab our multimeter. We want to make sure we're getting some sort of value here. So I take black, just ground it somewhere. Any of the shields will do. And then touch post 1. Multimeter set to 200K. We're getting 132. Now that's high, but so far in my experience, as long as you're getting something, here, it should work just fine. So there we go. Now you can lock it in by soldering these resistors here. Let's get a tighter shot. So you got a couple options here. You can either anchor it by soldering these points to the various capacitors here. It's totally fine. I usually just like to do a tiny little dab of glue right here where these connect. It's just as good. Those joints are doing nothing electronically for us. It's simply just to lock it in. In the event that we want to swap this bad boy out, in case it's faulty, something like that. That's just simpler. A little dab of glue and call it good. But totally up to you. If you want to anchor it in with solder, that's perfectly fine. This does the trick for me, so that's what I'm going to do. Alright, next up, we gotta read our Nand. So I'm going to be wiring this bad boy up. The X Flasher 360, that is, to these pins right here. Okay, so here's the documentation for getting the 4 gig Nand going. Pretty much just match the colors with these. If you're using the SD card reader, it's going to be more like a 1-to-1, 2-to-2, however you have yours color coded, but same idea. You can tell the numbers here by pin 1, pin 2, pin 3, pin 4, etc. up to 15, 16. Simple shit. So let's get this soldered up and read the Nand. So we got that there. What I really love about this is that it's got this breakaway cable. So if you've worked on Coronas before, you would know that the console will not boot if this oscillator line is hooked up. You would need to desolder it to check to see if it boots or not. But we've got this nice little breakaway cable here to easily unplug it and plug it back in, which is a chef's kiss choice gem. So cool, we're gonna need to plug in the power supply, not turn the console on, but feed it some juice, and then hook this bad boy up to our computer and boot up Jrunner. Now, if you don't have the latest Jrunner with extras, go ahead in the down below. That's all linked. All the downloads, everything we use will be linked down below. So check that out. I'm gonna plug this fucker in, and I'll see you on the computer. Okay, so we got Jrunner with extras booted up, currently on version 3.0.3. Auto updating version, very nice. Choice gem. So let's see, we've got our X Flasher SPI logo here, so that's set up correctly. Advanced Corona 4 gig read write, let's give that a go. Okay guys, I appear to have gotten this sorted out, so I'm now getting the format disk pop-up screen. We're going to X that out. I had not installed the drivers for my X Flasher, so I went ahead and did that, and now this is showing up. I also reflowed my joints off camera to where I could actually see what I'm doing, and that might have something to do with why this is now showing up. I don't know, but we got it showing up, so that's what's important. The size is 3.588. That looks good to me. And in case you didn't catch it, we got here by going advanced Corona 4 gig read write. So we're going to read it. We read it. Let's see. How do we do 2 dumps? Well, here's what I want to do. I want to rename this to Nand Dump 2. Okay. Load extra. I'm sure there's a better way to do this. Read again. Okay. Nand compare. Nands are the same. Very good. Okay. There we go. We got a backup of our Nand. Give yourself a round of applause if you made it this far. It's 4 gig Coronas can be a bit of a pain. Okay. So next we're going to need to make the ECC file. But first we're going to click SMC Plus, create ECC. Okay, it's created. So now the main source, we've got this glitch.ecc. So what we're going to do now is write that. So let's write it. Fatal hardware error. Okay. Let's try it again. Weird, yeah. Nothing changed. First time it was a fatal error. Next time it wrote totally fine. So the ECC is now written to our Corona 360. Now it's time to install the mod chip and get it all flashed. Tweak the timings, all that jazz. So let's get into that. Okay, so this mod supports multiple different mod chips. For Corona specifically, you're going to need one with a crystal oscillator. There's no onboard clock point for those. For Trinity, there's even quite a bit more options. You don't need the onboard oscillator, so you can use a matrix without the oscillator. You can use one of the RevC clones. You can use an Ace 3. For the purposes of this, I'm using a matrix with the onboard crystal oscillator. A very affordable option. readily available. I like this little chip here. Now, if you're into the Cool Runner clones, there's the Rev D, which has the oscillator, and there's always the Ace V3s. Now, the install or the points are going to be a little bit different for each of those, but follow the documentation for the purposes of this. Or we're installing this, so this guide is going to be catered to the Matrix with the onboard oscillator V3, I believe is it called, the Matrix V3. Yeah, so I'll have some of these linked down below. Follow along, and let's see how this goes. Okay, so here we have the RGH 1.2 Slim. The zip file has been extracted to a folder here, and we're going to be going into Corona. Well, actually, we're going to be doing that through Jrunner, but just to show you what's going on, we're using the Matrix, and we're going to be programming one of these SVF files. As you can see the notes here, it says start with 80 to 100, so that's exactly what we are going to do. Now, if I switch back over here, you see I've got this guy hooked up with the pin headers here. Red goes to VCC. It's really all you need to know. And as we program it, we're going to have a little bit of pressure here, just so those make proper contact. So I'm going to be holding this like this. Everything's plugged in. Power's not going to the board, but USB cable's plugged into the computer. We'll switch back. And from Jrunner we go Advanced, Custom Nand Timings, SVF, Load Source, and then from the RGH 1.2 Slim folder we go Corona, Matrix, Cool Runner, because that's what we're using here, SVF, and it says to start with 80. That's what we're going to do. There was also a note in there saying that 4 gigs might require higher timing files. But let's just see what happens when we start with 80. We'll go run.
Oh no.
Okay, that was weird. Well, I had to reset Jrunner, and now it programmed perfectly fine. Just to show it off one more time, we chose file 80, and the switch is set to the side closer to where the USB cable plugs in. Go run, and now it's working. I don't know what the deal was there, but it needed a reset. So there we go. We got it programmed. We might be programming it quite a few more times. We shall see. But we're going to start with 80. Okay, time to mount this sucker. Removed the back side of the adhesive, and I'm just going to mount this bitch right here. Very nice. Not obstructing anything. Still access the pins for our NAND cables. And yeah, looking pretty good. Okay, let's take a look at this diagram. But first, there's one little piece of the puzzle here on the chip. We're going to be bridging these topmost slim pads together. Not the bottom, just the top. That's all you gotta do. Heat it up. There we go. Simple as that. Now might as well pre-tin these pads here. Nice and simple, nice and easy. There we go. Beautiful. Nice and shiny, looking good. Looking good, feeling good, you know? Alright, let's take a look at this diagram. Okay, so here's the diagram. We've already bridged the slim pad. And ground 3.3 volts. Let's see. How much can we zoom in this motherfucker? Alright, it's all pretty standard stuff. Reset, standard. Post, if you didn't use the Postfix adapter, that's where you'll solder it to. We've got the adapter though, so that's where we're going to solder to. And this is where things change. This one's the new point, the PLL point. A little wild, little crazy, weird, wild stuff here. We're gonna need to hit it with the Exacto knife, scrape the solder resist from the board, and solder right there. Now, it's not too crazy. If you watch the Trinity video, it's pretty much the same kind of a deal there. But yeah, we're gonna have to do that here too. So we'll start with all the easier stuff and polish her off with the new PLL point. So let's get going with ground and 3.3 volts. Okay, let's do this, dudes. So just hit it with a fiberglass pen. It's not mandatory, but it's a nice little touch. I hit it with my Amtech tacky ass Flux. I'm gonna tin up. So I see what's going on here. So I was thrown off a little bit by the way this is. It appears that the silk screen isn't going to be consistent each time, because here it looks like the point is it's in the 3 somewhere. Silk screen is not a good way to go by, because for me it's clearly in the 5. Like right here. Let me get my Exacto knife. It is clearly right there at the base of the 5. So back to desktop. I'm going to go by is this trace right here, this line, and then just below that trace we'll have one of these little vias that we need to expose. So here, that trace is like right at the tail end of the 5. Is what we got to expose. Now this blade is totally fucked up, so I want to replace this. Get a fresh blade. Make sure you got a fresh Exacto knife as well. And then we're going to cut this up. Okay, nice and fresh. Now I'm not applying too much pressure here. Just going at this. So the last thing we want to do is cut a trace. Or destroy a trace. That might actually be enough. Now it's always hard to tell until you come in here with some rubbing alcohol and you can kind of see what's going on. So we could, yeah, you can see we've exposed quite a bit of conductible material here. I would like to get the whole via exposed. That looks pretty damn good to me. Now this may look a lot more forgiving than it actually is. This is a very fine point here. We're just very much zoomed in. And we'll get a nice decent blob of solder going on my tip. We'll clean it up, add some solder. We're going to try to tin that via. Okay. Okay. Looks good and tinned. We'll clean that up. Get some burnt flux there. Getting in our way. Now, as you can see, got a nice joint there to work with. So, find my spooky orange wire. Now, this is a very fine point, and this is one of the scenarios where the camera is actually doing me favors, because despite having a camera in my face, seeing something like this can be a bit challenging. That's a nice joint. Yeah. Seems like a pretty solid joint to me, kids. Now, how do I want to route this? Here's what I'm going to do. Where are we? Round up. Oop. Nope. Take my tweezers, route it up like this. Through those resistors and capacitors. And I am going to put it through that hole. Going to pull it nice and taut from the other side. Just like so. Just like that. You know what? I'm gonna need to cross them somewhere, huh? Unless... Okay, this one goes to E. Now I gotta figure out a better, I didn't really think too hard about the wiring and how everything's gonna cross over one another for future install. Definitely want to get this thought out a little bit smarter. Leave a comment down below for chip placement and how to properly route these cables. But for now, it's pretty okay. It's just not the most wire porn install I've ever seen, but perfectly good install. Cool, man. Well, now you got it wired up, got your chip flashed. Now it's just a matter of reattaching the heatsink and testing it out. So that's what I'm gonna do. So remember, this is 80. I'm gonna put this bad boy together off screen and let you guys know where I ended up with the timing files. I'm gonna go ahead and tweak those off camera as well, because that's might be a tedious affair. And once I do, I'll let you know where I ended up. And now, before I forget, it is recommended you have a 5K to 10K ohm resistor in line on the PLL, which is the E line. So I got this 5K resistor right here, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to solder it to the E right here. So remove this guy. Oh. All right. Very nice. Okay. Then I need to trim this guy just a little bit. Right. Cool. And there we go, 5K ohm resistor inline with E right there. We're good and safe. So yeah, anything between 5K and 10K will do the trick. Carry on. Okay, so I've got it hooked up. I've got the controller synced. So I tried timing file 80, didn't work out. And I jumped up to 100, and it's been instabooting each try. Tried it about twice off camera, so let's check it out. On. Oh yeah, it's already gone. And there she is. So timing file 100 did the trick for me with the matrix, with the oscillator, on a 4 gig Corona. So let's try it again. Light, solid light. Oh, yep, already booting. 4 in a row. And if it's anything like the Trinity, we're just good to go. Okay. Bleep bloop. And we good. Fuck yeah, dudes. Game changer. So it might be a little bit more tinkery than before, but than with the Trinity, because that one I just tried the first file, it worked. Might have to play around going by what chip you're using and whether or not yours is a 4 gig or not a 4 gig, but this is kind of the mustard. So I'm going to remember that IP address. I've got an Ethernet cable hooked up, so I want to go back over and get the CPU key over in Jrunner. So let's do that. Okay. So I'm going to need to load up my source again over here. So Jrunner output Nand dump. And over here, change this to 50 dot, what is it? 95. Get CPU key. Okay. Bad. That's a funny one. And I've got to re-click the SMC plus. Glitch 2, SMC plus. Create XE build image. Okay. Very nice. And now we can't write this in XE build. We're going to need to hook it up with the X flasher again to flash it. So let's do that. Okay, so remember you got to reconnect this breakaway cable here. So we're going to be writing to it. And also, yeah, I had to, I don't believe I mentioned it, but I had to obviously unplug this, and I completely unplugged the cable from the X Flasher 360. It was not booting up with this plugged into the X Flasher. I had to completely unplug it, as well as the breakaway cable. I don't know if that's regular or whatever, but yeah, something to take note of, that unplugging this completely from the X Flasher when turning on the console was required for me. First time using this thing. I don't have all the kinks worked out, but that's how it worked out. So that's hooked up, and I need to hook up my power supply, and we should be able to write the modified NAND, no problem. Okay, I've got power hooked up. X flashers set up. Let's see if it's detected. Corona 4 gigabyte read write. Yep, it's there. Update.flash. Set up. Let's go right. Oh. Fatal hardware error. Let's try it again. Being used by another process. Okay. 2, 4, 5, 6. My cat's going crazy. Okay, I'm gonna restart Jrunner. So this is kind of the thing with the 4 gig Coronas. Sometimes they're just wonky as fuck. Like everything's soldered. Oh. Everything's soldered up. And it just wants to be a butthole. kind of how it goes. Oh, but now it's showing up. I didn't change the soldering, none of that. Might be cool now. Let's see. Update. CR4 selected. Let's go right. Hey, and now it's writing. Okay. No, not CR4, I'm at SMC plus. I'm a dummy. Try writing it again. Hey, there we go. Derp. Okay. Okay, so that needs to be unplugged. And I believe that does as well. At least it did last time. And now I should be able to just plug it in and should boot to the dash. So let's see. Okay, we're back over here, and this isn't plugged in. As soon as I plug it in, it should try to boot. This controller is on, so let's do that. Oh, controller shut off. Yep, light's going crazy. And there she goes. INSTABOOT, baby. Let's try it again. This is with the 100 timing file on a 4 gigabyte model Corona. INSTABOOT. Alright guys, if you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you're new around here. Do modding content every once in a while. I'm going to try to do it weekly once again. I've been slacking on that, but I'm going to get back in the grind. Big shout outs to Josh Octal for making this, keeping the Xbox 360 modding scene alive. If you had told me RGH 1.2 for Slims was going to be a thing, I would have said you're crazy, but here it is, man. It's very, very cool. Also, if you're looking for an installer, I'm going to be adding this as a send-in service on my website, and until then, you can always shoot me an email if you want to get something done, and we will work it out. And check my email every couple days and give you the rundown, and go from there. You don't pay until it's done, you know, and then I holler at you. We sort it out, ship it back. Also want a big shout out to Weekend Modder. One for selling he's got a bunch of useful 360 tools on his site. You get them pretty quick if you're in the US. But also the whole intro of the video, going over all the Coronas, I learned that from one of his videos many moons ago. So appreciate that from him. The knowledge, the power. Big shout outs to Weekend Modder. But anyway, dudes, thank you guys for watching. ModzvilleUSA here, signing out, and I'll see you on the next one.